Noodles, live from Mission Control. How are you, sir?
Noodles.
I wanted to hear the Biden story. I was enjoying that.
Well, see, Noodles, you and I get entertaining. Wally is all about he's got a set agenda and business like it's
he wants to get to the hard-hitting facts. He wants to get to the questions.
Right?
You and I.
No, listen. I like just didn't want to waste your time.
Yeah, we're like kids. We get distracted. Oh, look, there's something over here. Let's talk about that. I mean,
Noodles wants to hear about when you go to the bathroom and see the table. There's basically a picture of Joe Biden's face in the urinal, and that's where you go to the bathroom.
Hey, there you go. I mean, I was listening to you tell the story too. I mean, think about it. What a great idea for a restaurant. You're never going to run out. If you're at a grocery store, you're never going to run out of supplies. You'd be like, oh, you know what? I'll go over to aisle 6 and get some sugar and make some cookies. And, to me, I think it's a great idea. And only in Del Boca Vista or wherever the hell you are, that's going to work, right? Because, I feel like I hear you're in Florida. I hear a bunch of noise in the background before we get going. I'm like, this guy's literally at a retirement home. And what is George Costanza and Jerry's parents? Is that Del Boca Vista? And they're
Del Boca Vista.
Yeah, there it is. That's you. That's you enjoying your life.
Noodles, this place, see this table, this was like vintage cowboys from Calgary back in the day.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, am I really in Naples right now? Like average age is supposed to be 80. I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, keep in mind they had to bulldoze that Cowboys in Calgary to get rid of all the stories and all of the things that happened there. So you don't want that to happen to this poor guy's grocery store and restaurant.
Yeah, there's bones flying out of the closet all over the place in there.
Exactly. Well, it's good to be here. Wally, great to see your smiling face.
Yep.
It's always good to see you. I got to say before we get underway, your show is wildly entertaining. I don't know how you do it 5 days a week, but it is a well-run, well-oiled machine. I just enjoy it.
I don't know how we do it. I feel like, that's chaos makes it somehow like we're all three of us are disasters until the mics go on. And then you're like, oh, okay, we got a show to do here. And this is why what attracted me to the urinal story, because I feel like that's a topic that is like, we will spend 45 minutes on and dissect and tell stories about. So I feel at home. It's a little warm up for my show. I love it.
Fair enough. You can use that. It's all yours. Before we get any further, I do want to address sad news today, obviously in the broadcast world, as we all know. Bob Cole, legendary broadcaster, died today at 95. He was a legend without question. All of us had worked with it or around him at some point, right? On the road. Noodles, like you knew when you were around Bob Cole, it was just, there was an aura around him, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I never, obviously working for a different company, I never got an opportunity to work with him. But, the beautiful part about it is in the hockey world, we always attach ourselves to something. So when I heard the news, this afternoon, we all have our own little memory of, I've been fortunate enough. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have met him and worked with him and all of that type of stuff, or worked with him. And to me, I never worked with him, but I crossed paths with him at the rink. And, I laugh because, I talked to Greg Millen, I worked Mike Johnson and guys who have actually worked with him. And I always ask, like, what's it like? And they're like, until you actually experience it, you can't explain it. And, in the color world and in the media world, it was really fascinating to hear how he worked. Like he didn't want the color guy to talk when the puck was dropped. And there were certain rules that he had, which I respect so much, because we forget sometimes in our business, we're in the entertainment business. And growing up, I remember Bob Cole and some of his greatest calls, but I attribute my childhood in watching Hockey Night and Hockey Night in Canada. That was Bob Cole and Harry Neal. Like those were guys that you never knew them personally, but you felt like you were attached to them because you felt that they were sitting on the couch next to you watching the game and just doing play-by-play in color. So I respected them a ton. Obviously, it's sad news. He lived a great life. Fortunate enough, again, to meet him and talk with him. And I said this before, and I still believe this is surreal and weird in my lifetime. there's people that are icons and living legends and legends that you come across, and you go to introduce yourself, and it's weird when they know who you are or know your name.
Yes.
That has always been something very weird for me, because I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in. You're at a zoo and everybody's inside and you're on the outside, like, banging on the glass. And I remember going up to Bob Cole to just say hi. And he was like, "Hey, Jamie," like, it was like he knew my name. And I thought that was very, very surreal. That is one of the things I remember, because I was like, obviously he might've called a game that I was in or backed up in, whatever, all of that. He would know who I was, but I forget he knew who I was. And that was really weird for me and surreal. And I take that to heart. And I obviously very special person, very sad day, but we all have great memories of him.
I love when he used to call games with Harry Neal. Like, I thought those two were so good together. But I was lucky, Noodles. I got a chance to do a game with him.
Really?
And it was when I was doing color for Sportsnet. It was a game in Washington, and I'd heard all the stories. If you're working with Bob, you got to be out. And for people that don't know the business of doing color, as Jamie said, your job as the color guy is, as soon as the puck is dropped, you're supposed to get out. A lot of guys linger longer and they'll talk and whatever. And with Bob, you have to get out. So the first thing he says in the box to me, he's like, "Jason," almost at the Bob Cole voice. He's like, I like to set the tone, but set the stage before the puck is dropped. So can you get out just before puck drop? I'm like, "Bob, I will be out 2 seconds before the puck is dropped." So like clockwork, I made sure I gave at least 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And after the game, he's like, "Boy, I like working with you, Jason. You get out on time," because that was his thing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember too, he didn't have a phone at the time. So the way Bob and I communicated that road trip is I had to call him in his room, or he called me in my room. And this wasn't that long ago. And we had to meet in the lobby. We went down in the rink. He told some great stories on the cab ride and the way up about some of the coaches that he liked, because we all interview the coaches before the game and talk to the coaches. But just, it was so much fun to do that one game with Bob and to hear the voice and be sitting beside him. And you hear all the stories, but until you did it, it was a pretty cool moment in my broadcasting career.
Yeah, that would be intimidating. Like, for me, it'd be intimidating, because you're like, okay, you want to make sure you're trying to get a thought, you're trying to be sharp, but you also got to get out before he either gives you the hand or like waves you off, or that would be my biggest fear, is having him pissed at me like 5 minutes into the game and him just glaring at you the whole time. You're like, "Oh God." So
when John Bartlett and I used to do games, because Bart's, who works for Sportsnet now, doing a great job in the playoffs, by the way, Bart's, we used to tell Bob Cole stories in the box all the time. And when they come into you for another game, Noodles, we're coming in live from New York, and Bart's would always do it in the Bob Cole voice. He goes, "Welcome in from the New York game. We're here live in Montreal." It was just, everybody talked about him because he was such an icon and just so good for the game.
Yeah.
Missed for sure, but absolute legend. And I mean, it was just an amazing guy to be around. So I do, it's a sad day, but I do appreciate the long life that he enjoyed. Also, he was like a champion curler.
Is he?
Yes, I think he went to the Briar, if I'm not mistaken,
He's like this big too. He was just a tiny little man. Like, I can't imagine him like rolling the rock, it just, I love it though. I mean, again, that's the ignorance of me. I'm sure he was brilliant at it, but in my mind, all he did was sit and call games all day long, no matter what. Didn't do anything else but call games. I didn't know that he was an unbelievable curler.
Yes, I'll have to. Someone will find it, but I do have to find it at some point. Anyway, I want to move on because I know you don't have a lot of time. So wait a sec. Cole was in 1971 and 75 Briars as the skip for the Newfoundland team. Also, he played the 65 and 73 Canadian Mixed Championships. So there you go.
All right.
Okay, getting on to the Sens. We can get to the playoffs in a sec, but you know what? Sorry. I want to get to the goalie situation in Boston right now. I don't understand changing the goalie. If you win game one, I don't care that you've rotated all year long. You have now given an excuse if you lose the game, and it causes a complete distraction. Jamie, you're a former goalie coach, a broadcaster. Explain to me that you would do the same thing that they have done in Boston and rotate goalies?
I think, okay, obviously the easy answer is they've done it now 30 games in a row. Like that was, I think last night was game 30, where it's like, you're going. So I'm going to step back from this and remove like any like emotion out of it. I think Swayman's a 1. I think they actually both are 1s.
Yeah.
But are they 50 game 1s? Are they 55 game 1s? Are they 60 game 1s? Like there's about 8 guys in this league where general managers just, they go to bed at night going, Hellebuck's playing tomorrow. Demko's playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sturkin. You've got Vasilevsky. You've got 8 guys. Outside of that, this is a tandem world. And the degrees of tandem, it's different because, for example, I think Stuart Skinner played too much this year in Edmonton. But, Pickard, they got him some games near the end. It was supposed to be Campbell and Skinner. It didn't work out. But there are guys who are 50-game starters. We'll call them 50-game starters. But you need somebody to play 35 games if you're only a 50-game starter. Right now, the way that it's set up is both of those guys are 42-game starters, 41. We'll call it, you're going to get pulled a few times,
Sure.
Sickness, whatever. They that's what they know. That's what they are. So I understand. I think Swayman can start 6 games in a row, whatever. Allmark started 6 games in a row last year. They deviated from the plan. And then by the time they hit the ditch, they couldn't get it back. Mm-hmm. And it was now game 5, we wouldn't be talking about this story if they win if Marchand would have scored on that breakaway on Bobrovsky with 7 seconds left. Series is over, done. He doesn't. They storm back. They play Allmark for 6 games. They go to Swayman in game 7. Swayman was fine, but they end up losing. They broke the plan. I think there was a plan coming into the playoffs going, we're going to rotate the first couple games, and then we're going to see what happens after that. So I'm not 100% convinced they'll come back with Allmark on Saturday, but I wouldn't be surprised. And here's the other thing. You got to also anticipate, like, the Leafs are going to have a response. So maybe that's a game where it's like, we need the other guy to go in and stand on his head and steal this game. And, so again, this isn't Kiprusoff McLennan, like.
I understand.
But it's believe me, I do understand what everybody's saying, but I with their mindset, I can see exactly what they're doing. It's like we pissed away what happened last year, one of the greatest regular season. Mm-hmm. And in the playoffs, we're in good shape and we choked it off. We're going to stick with the plan. Here's the other thing. If you ask the guys, and Yorkie, I'll put this back to you. You ask the guys in the dressing room. I think they believe in both of those guys. Like, think of this. They won game 1. Okay. Jeremy Swayman wins game 1 and was great. They were going to a Vezina winner the next night. It's not the drop off. You're not going to, the Craig Anderson to, who was backing him up, Anders Nielsen. Like it's stuff like you're going from a Vezina winner to a Vezina finalist, like back and forth. So it's a counterpunch. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, if Boston goes to Allmark Saturday, they're like Montgomery might say to him, you got to steal us this one on the road because the Leafs are going to have an advantage. And I want to play Swayman in game 5 coming back, and maybe we can knock him out here if we can steal one on Saturday. Yeah. So I think there is a method to the madness. I know it's frustrating people, but if they stick with it, you can't really fault them on it. If Allmark, I thought Allmark played really well in game 2. It wasn't his fault they lost.
But it just allows you that one opportunity to create the distraction. That's all and people agree. Hate that in the playoffs. That's
I've heard this saying in football, if you have 2 number 1 quarterbacks, you don't have one at all. Because if one guy falters, you're going, should have started the other guy, should have gone. And that is going to be. You heard a little whisper out of there after game 2 in Boston going, well, Swayman would have stopped that Matthews breakaway. Well, maybe Swayman doesn't stop that Yarncroke on the goal line glove save, and like to me, there's a bunch of what ifs. If you win, you don't have to answer for it. If you lose, you have to answer for everything.
And that's all I need is if Swayman loses game 2, then you go to Allmark in game 3 to me. Yeah. And if he doesn't, then you just leave him there. Anyway, I'm not the coach in the national.
What's something you said earlier there, Noodles, that you believe Swayman is a 1. There's something different. They're both great goalies. Swayman to me just seems like he has a little more moxie,
He does.
a little more cockiness to him, which I think is really important in a number one.
Yeah.
I like how he carries himself, and he's not afraid of the spotlight.
Smiling. Like yesterday, his mask gets knocked off. There's a 3-minute delay. They're on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
He's looking in the crowd, smiling. I'm sitting on my couch. I go, what the hell are you smiling at? You're trying to defend a 2-1 lead. But like me, I knew what I was as a player. I would be just terrified. God, drop the puck. Can we have straight time? Let's try and defend this lead. He's in, you know what it is? You're right. He's got this swagger about it.
Yes.
Now, the only other guy in the league that has that, and I believe it's 100% true, is Connor Hellebuck. Connor Hellebuck gave up 6 in the opening night. I don't know if you heard his media. He's like, felt good. They weren't I didn't really allow a bad goal. Like he just, those guys can give up a touchdown and it just is, it's in one ear, out the other. They don't care. Where me, I wouldn't sleep for 3 days. And, I would have 24 Bud Light. Who knows what I would be doing, but I wouldn't be like these guys, how composed. The other thing too is they're both big goalies.
Yeah.
Swayman's edges are a little bit better. So if you look at Butterfly and so a couple times there's been really good scrambles or big scrambles around the net, and you see him, he's in complete splits and he's strong on it and he holds it. Whereas Allmark, there's a little bit more scramble to him, but he has the flexibility as well. Swayman's edge work, I think, is a little bit better than Allmark's.
Noodles, they always say this about players. Certain players are elite because they're able to read the play. I find Swayman really reads what the Leafs are doing well. Like he anticipates, and you could just tell he understands the position, and he's just got that. All the great goalies have, right? They anticipate, and they're already there. To me, he just seems like he's a little bit better than Allmark.
Yeah, but the crazy part is Allmark won the Vezina last year.
I know. So I know. What are we debating here?
So, and that's the other part too, right? You have a Vezina Trophy winning goalie on your bench, which leads me to a point with Ottawa's goaltending. Jamie, do you do something with the goaltending? Do you leave it as is? They're both obviously signed for next season.
Right.
And that leads me kind of with the Allmark thing of Linus Allmark is signed for 1 more year. So they don't have to move anybody in Boston, but it seems like they're going to have to do something. He has a 15 team no trade list. I'm assuming Ottawa may be on that. Would Linus Allmark, would you go after him if he was available, or are you going to stick to the 2 guys you got here, hoping that things turn around?
Well, I think Korpisalo is the guy that they committed to, and when you look at it down the stretch, I think they made the decision to go, you're going to play and go sink or swim, because this, I think one of our broadcasts was he had surpassed his most games played. So it must have been
career
game
high.
40, right? It was game 40. I think we made a big deal about it. We're like, this is the most he's ever played. And he ended up getting to 55, as you see there. And, they're paying him to be a 1A. I've always, at the start of the season, now coming back off the double knee injury there, I thought Forsberg did a good job of, because you never know. You never know if it's in your head. Like you never know if you're the same person. They didn't play well. Let's be honest. And now the team in front of them didn't play well as well, because you could make an argument and say, well, why was Korpisalo so good in LA? Well, LA was a very structured, good defensive team, didn't give up a ton of high quality chances. So all you had to do is be a good, solid goaltender and not have to chase the puck. And, oh, by the way, here's a breakaway for you. And here's a backdoor, one-timer. That was rare in LA, how tight they were. As we've seen in Ottawa, there's pockets where they're really dialed in, and then there's pockets where it's dog park defense, where they're chasing the puck around. So to me, I think you come back. No, I think Korpisalo comes back for sure. And I do believe you still see if there's upgrades out there. And what I mean by that, if you believe that you've got money to spend, I'm just getting crazy here. Let's say New Jersey goes after Markstrom again, and they make Jake Allen available. And Allen's got 1 year left on his deal at 3.8 or something. And it's close to Forsberg's money, but you do something and you just want to change that position for a different look, a different guy, all of that. Like I think one of them's coming back for sure. I'm not committed to both of them just based on if you're looking for upgrades, which this organization needs to continue to do is upgrade in everywhere. I think outside of the few players we call the spine of the team, everything's on the table for this management group, and it should be. But it doesn't mean that they don't have great framework, great contracts for a lot of these guys. But, I've said this all along. I believe the fourth line should be veteran guys, should be the Trevor Lewises and the Nola Charis and guys like that will help settle a game down when it's 3-1 in Arizona and you give up, stuff like that. Like I did that 6-game road trip that in the end basically cost DJ's job and all of that. And in every one of those games, Ottawa was up and feeling good about their game. And the immaturity, they couldn't, how fragile they were. There wasn't people that could grab the game and go, we're fine here. Yeah. So maybe more veteran help, maybe a different looking net, different mixes on the back end. You guys know I'm bullish on Ottawa. I think they've got some framework pieces that are fantastic, but you got to make the pieces fit together the right way from a chemistry standpoint and from a maturity standpoint. And I think that goes hand in hand. So there is a lot of work to be done here, but I think they're dealing from a position of strength for some of those players who are really good players, and they're 21, 22, 23.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had Drake Matheson the other day, and one of the things I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Wally, one of the things that Drake said near the end was, how does this team kind of switch things up? And he kind of alluded, a couple older guys wouldn't be a bad thing involved in this, not only in the locker room, but on the ice. I'm with you on that, Noodles. Just, from playing, there's just guys that know how to, things are getting rough. We need a shift. We need a shift right now, guys. Somebody to go on the ice and just settle this game down. And I'm not talking about a fight. I'm just talking about playing the right way. You've been in the league for 6, 7, 8 years. You understand it, and you know what it takes. And Ottawa's just missing that right now.
Well, they do, because I think we could all see there were nights you looked at the Claude Giroux's face, and he had done it so much, right? Yeah. Like he's the guy. You can't be the voice every night of reason and go, guys, like I've been telling you. And then Brady, gets on tilt because he just wants it so bad. Yep. He starts chasing it, and guys, follow me. I've got in, and he just a one-man wrecking crew. But sometimes less is more. As a goaltender, you can't. I learned this early. You can't stop the puck harder. It's actually counterproductive. I can work to position, but then I get worked up and I start open holes. I want to try so hard, but you got to try smart. And there were nights where it's like, okay, we're trying so hard, but we're not using it with our heads.
Exactly.
And then we're getting in trouble. And to me, veteran players can say, guys, breathe. We're fine. And a lot of that too, it goes hand in hand with coaching and system. You can rely on your structure. There's a lot of things to get sorted out here, and hiring the right coach too to implement some accountability, that structure, and say this is how we're playing, and it's non-negotiable, and everyone buys into it. And maybe the coach has a hand in some of the player acquisitions as well, kind of like Rick Tocchet. I think I talked to Rick Tocchet this year in Vancouver, and I think he kind of was in on, hey, we're going to go get some veteran kind of longer D on the back end. And it was Cole and, guys like that. It's grizzled vets got added into the mix of their talented players, and they kind of took off.
Yeah.
Makes me think of would Josh Bailey have made a difference when they had him in as a PTO at the beginning of the season?
He looked all right. For the day and a half he was there or whatever. Yeah. It was a thin, thin tryout. I think he played 2 games, and I think I called him. Was he out? I think he was out east.
Yes. Yeah, he went to the Yeah. And he looked good, but they had no cap space.
Yeah, no spot for him, unfortunately.
Okay, so last question before I let you go, and that's because I got a million of them, but I want to get to coaching. I know almost every candidate that's out there. Is there one that you look at and goes and think that's the perfect fit for Ottawa? Is it Craig Berube?
Okay, I played with Craig. Yeah. I love him. I talk to guys in St. Louis all the time. They loved him. I don't know if you saw recently on that TNT interview. I think it was Biz and them interviewing Luke Schen's brother. What is it? What's it? Braden Shen?
Braden
Yes.
Shen.
And him just saying like the guys miss you, loving him, all of that type of stuff. Like he's a player's coach with accountability.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow me to get crazy here. Do you want me to get crazy?
Yes.
Again, I feel like Batman.
Rod Brindamore doesn't have a deal for next year.
Oh,
We know,
Yes.
Ottawa native.
Heard it up.
I'm just saying. Now listen, I'm sure if because I think Carolina could win the cup. They're that good. Like they're that deep. But I'm just saying Rod Brindamore does not have a contract. I was told that yesterday, which blows my mind. To me, and he's had the hometown discount and all of that. But like you get to a point if you got to shop the market. I had Todd McLellan. I know Todd very well. Love Todd. He's got new school and old school mixed in. I had Joel Quenneville in St. Louis. Obviously, there's hurdles to go there, but there's some great coaches out there. Gerard Gallant. But if I just had a wish list, and what maybe who's tied to the organization. Everyone talks about John Gruden. I went to the Marlies game on Sunday because one of my best friends is Gruden's assistant. So I went and sat in the coach's room with him afterwards. John's a good coach, and I think he's got ties to Steve and all of that. So there's great coaches out there. It's got to be the right fit for these players at this time. So it has to have a component of accountability. And the reason why I keep coming back to Craig Berube or getting crazy with a Rod Brindamore, I think of those Vancouver players. And Yorkie, you weigh in on this. You're sitting on the bench. That Vancouver team and the coach is going, I need you to forecheck. And you look back and you see Rick Tockett's face staring at you.
Yeah.
1,400 games. His nose is on sideways. He's fought the game. He's done everything. He's a hell of a person and a player. There's just that level of like, that guy's been there and done that.
100%.
And I'm going to go through the wall for him. And if I don't, I know that I'm going to be in the stands. So I think there's got to be that component where it's like a coach that just is able to grab this team, metaphorically and go, this is how we're going to play. And I need you all to play like this. And yes, Timmy, you're a skilled guy. I'm going to give you a longer leash than Parker Kelly, but we still have to play within that structure. So that's why I keep coming back to Craig Berube and or a Brindamore type of guy. What that is like hardworking, demands, respect, accountability, all that type of stuff.
It does go a long way. And I'll take it back to when I won an American League championship. I don't know if you ever encountered Barry Melrose as a coach.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't have him as a coach, but I know Barry well. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Talk about holding guys accountable. Mind you, this was early 90s. So you could do a few more things to the guys to get them going. Like, we almost had fisticuffs in the dressing room a few times if guys didn't play the right way. We had to hold Barry back a couple times. But we were expected to play a certain way. And if you didn't, there was going to be a consequence. And we ended up winning a championship because everybody bought in. And at different times, you can't really grab guys by the scruff anymore and take them around.
No, yes, obviously.
Yeah, but no, and Barry had played the game, right? He'd played the game. He'd been a defenseman, hard-nosed defenseman. And, one of the best coaches I had in Ottawa as an assistant was Craig Ramsey.
Yeah,
and Craig,
really smart. Really smart.
The little stuff that he taught our forwards on the forecheck, and this was long before people were talking about, you hear it all the time now, he has a good stick, active stick. He was teaching that stuff back in the late 90s, early mid-90s, and our forwards, we won so many games just on little details that other teams weren't doing. And to me, whoever Ottawa brings in, I think needs that component. I agree. Motivation, accountability, but also details. Of those little things that separate the good teams from the not so good teams. Like I just think that's so vital.
This is why I think it's important. And I believe, like, I'm a big Michael Anlauer fan. Like, I got to spend a little time with him. He's a wonderful person, but he's passionate about his team. But I think he's got deep enough pockets that he's going to and I've said this a million times. He has this saying, best in class. So he's going to go and get the best person available. And I don't think he's worried about, is that going to be too much? Matty Nico, he goes and gets guys like, hey, like he's building up on and off the ice. And to me, you talk about the details. He's going to get a great, head coach, but he's going to spend on assistant coaches or associate coaches that are going to build out your program. That's what I did this last year when Brad Treliving took over in Toronto. I went because I played junior with Tree and we're become pretty good friends and all that. And I looked at his front office staff. I just counted on the website how many people work there, coaches, trainers, all 144 people work for Toronto Maple Leafs. And I did the same thing for the Ottawa Senators start of the last year.
Yeah.
It was like 43 people, including Chris Moore and BMO. And like it was that's how many people were there. Michael Andlauer has the resources to build out, and he's going to build up, and they're going to add to the scouting staff, add to the coaching staff, add to everything. So this program is going to build out. You don't have to be the Toronto Maple Leafs and have 3 people to make a shake and do all of these things. But you also don't, to me, they're going to have the resources. And I think Michael Andlauer is going to, and Steve Staios and Pooley and Ryan Bonus, everybody who gets involved is going to find the right person and the right staff to build out. And a lot of them might be sitting there. Like Alfie, like what a great resource. Like, I don't know how many times I looked over him, see Alfie, like have a Hall of Famer, like pointing the detail out. And, like you need guys like that you need people in your organization. I just think you need more of them. That's what it is. They need to build out.
Well, did Ottawa, when was that, Wally? They had by far the smallest hockey ops staff in the NHL. It wasn't even close.
Yeah. And their analytics guy was part-time.
Yes.
Right. Elias, I think.
Elias. Yeah. I stay in touch with him. He's a great guy. He works for the government. He's like, just does analytics on the side type of thing. Like now they got
just wild. The Toronto Maple Leafs had, I think, 5 at one point.
Oh, no. The number is like 17, something like that. Like it's a high number. Now Kyle Dubas hired that staff, right?
Yeah.
It's a large number.
I was shocked. Because I normally never did any Toronto games when I was working for Sportsnet, but I went to a practice one time. I forget why I was in town, but I counted the people on the ice at a pregame skate. There was like 3 guys with iPads doing stuff. It was after the practice had ended. There were a couple skating coaches, about 7 assistant coaches. I think there was more coaches in tracksuits than players.
Yeah, they have 9 development people that are like readily at like. That's why they practice at MasterCard, where there's 4 rinks, because they're constantly pulling players, especially at the AHL level, pulling a player, going work on skills and stuff like. But it's sometimes it's too much. Sometimes a guy just needs to go practice for 30 minutes and go and have lunch and relax and get his mind on the game the next day, or get his mind on something else. Like you can't just. Sometimes it's paralysis by overanalysis.
Yes, fair enough.
100%.
Fair enough. But there's no question Ottawa needs more. Okay, Noodles. You brought up Joel Quenneville, and it's not a topic we talk about a lot. I'm just curious, are we past everything now? I know he's not reinstated by the league, but are we at the point where he can be accepted back into the National Hockey League? I don't know the answer. I think he's a brilliant hockey coach. And certainly when you see someone of that stature out there, you're like, man, it'd be good to have him behind the bench. I don't know outside of that if he's welcome back, but would you put him behind the bench again? Are we past everything?
I think so he's only done 1 interview, and it was with Andy Strickland, and I watched it, and then I sent Q a note after. Like, Q was one of my favorite coaches. And yes, like you can separate, even like it was awful what happened. There's, I think there's a lot of things that have changed in hockey because of that situation for the good. It's unfortunate that Kyle Beach had to go through that. And Q actually talks about it and says, like, I wish I was more educated about it. I wish I would have paid attention. I wish I would have spoke up. Like, he owns it. And to me, I think sometimes when you ask for forgiveness, like he's not deflecting, going, yeah, Stan Bowman threw me under the bus. McDonough threw me under the bus. He's saying, like, I needed to be better in that situation, but I promise you, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I was trying to win a Stanley Cup. But at the end of the day, mistakes were made. He admits he made mistakes. To me, I think he'll get reinstated. I don't know where. And I think education helps people be better. Like, that's the one thing. We want to judge, which we all have made a I live in a glass house. I don't throw stones because I've made mistakes. But I think if you can get better and help and shine a light on it, I think he does get reinstated. It has to be the right situation, though, too, because he's a hell of a coach. He really is. Yeah. But again, you get out in front of it, you disarm people with the truth, and you say, you know what, we made mistakes here. I want to be better. I've shined a light on it. I'm going to do what I can, but I want to move forward instead of looking back. I think it'll happen, but I don't know what setting. I can't tell you what setting.
Yeah,
fair enough.
That was really well said, by the way.
Just an interesting name that's out there. Anyway, Noodles, I know you got a show to do, so I appreciate your time. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to the urinal story today in the show.
You really gonna do? Are you gonna leave me alone with this guy for the next 20 minutes?
I don't know. I could stay for another 4 minutes if you'd like. Because
okay, all right then. So here's my question.
Yes, I need another one.
Eric Brandstrom, is he on your team next season with the Ottawa Senators?
Okay, so this is an interesting one because I like Eric, and I think we've seen him develop in front of our eyes. He's got more confidence skating, uses his body. The question is, if this is a copycat league and you're seeing teams that have success on that third pairing, they have trees, they don't have shrubs. So that's that is the biggest takeaway. Yes. Is if he's going to play on the third pairing, he's got to be, a physical type. Like, that's why I think, Clevin is going to push through, because he's a big monster and kind of like, that stay-at-home Nicholas Hague type of player. But that doesn't mean that Brandstrom can't play the right side. But I still think there's going to be I don't know how you guys feel. I think they're trading a defenseman, a left shot defenseman.
Noodles, I think 100% one of the, on this blue line next year, Zub staying here, Sanderson staying here. One of Shabbat or Chychrun will probably get traded. I think it's going to be Chychrun. And I think they're going to have to get another right shot D to come in and play in that top four via trade or via free agent. That's your top four. Clevin slides in. So to your point, are you comfortable with Brandstrom in the third pairing? You can make all kinds of comparisons. You can look at the Boston Bruins, for example. Look at Grzelcyk there. He's not the biggest guy.
Right.
He's their puck mover in a little bit of different role. But they've got so many big trees on that blue line already. And that's the problem with Ottawa. It's just, where do you want to be as a team? And they need more of those big, long guys back there. Like, one of the best players in the playoffs right now, nobody's talking about, is Brandon Carlo. Like, how good is this guy?
6'5", shut plays down and advances the puck and can make a play offensively.
Great shot.
Yeah, exactly. The unfortunate part, and I think this is what they wanted in a perfect world, is Travis Hamanuk's game not to drop off.
Exactly.
Then you've got that veteran guy who's a good guy in the room, solid, could settle things down, works hard, block shots, all of that. He would have been able to settle things out. So if you had Giroux up top, up front, and a guy like Hamanuk on the back end, that might add a little stabilization. Hamanuk's game had just dropped off, that you couldn't, they didn't put him in by the end. But if you could find a younger Hamanuk, a Tanev, guys like that, you find somebody that you can either sign or trade for to bring in that can play in your top four, who's a grizzled vet, who plays the right way, because you've got guys that handle the puck. You're right. If you end up moving out Chychrun, you still got Sanderson and Shabbat that can go and advance the puck. You need some stabilization. Artem Zub maybe can get pushed down to 4 instead of playing in the 2 hole. Like, if you could find a big upgrade there and solidify that top 4, now all of a sudden you can make a decision on a Brandstrom if it's Clevin, or you find another long, maybe cagey the Joel Edmondsons of the world, guys like that, who've been there, done that, and play a certain type. But I think they are going to, again, I come back to you, deal from a position of strength, because Chychrun is, if you move him, or if you move Shabbat or whoever you decide, you're going to get something back for him.
Oh, yeah.
And something attractive. So that's where, again, big decisions to be made, but you're not dealing like, you're not San Jose. Like, San Jose's got a bunch of picks, there's no spine of the team there. You're trying to move Couture out. Like, there's nothing to build from. You're starting from scratch. That's not the case in Ottawa. Like they got to just shape around that group.
Well, just think about how attractive this, like, Ottawa's just got too much of the same thing. Like a lot of teams are looking for a guy to quarterback their power play. Just so happens Ottawa's got 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
and they're all left shots.
Well, and they're all under contract. So you can get value for them. So I
100%.
think it's about sorting it out, but making the right decision and not a rash decision. You know, I've heard people talk about they got a bunch of great pieces, but do the pieces fit together? Right. And that's what seemed to not fit. Is they were trying to force, hey, this left shot can go over here, and maybe we can have this, and it just never. And then Shabbat's injuries, you couldn't get him, consistently. Maybe asking a little bit too much from Jake, and then Chychrun was kind of, touch and go. I think Chychrun got really going after the trade deadline, after kind of he just relaxed and played.
Yeah.
But at that point, the playoffs were too far gone.
Yeah.
Here's something for your show to talk about today. The Bruins on this date in 2018 became the first team in NHL history to trail 3 times before winning Game 7 as they entered the third period, trailing the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-3. So you can bring that up because I'm sure your listeners in Toronto would love to be reminded of that one.
I'm not here to poke nerves today. I'm going to be just like, it's all nice. It's one game. Let's relax. All of that type of stuff. I've got enough, people that are upset, I'm sure, in 15 minutes. They don't need me poking people. But
the officiating would be a huge topic today for sure.
You know what? You're right. But on both sides, like the Leafs had 5 power plays last night. They didn't have 1 or 2. They had 5. They were 0 for 5. So if your power play scores 2 of 5, you're not talking about a loss today, probably. So there you go.
And if Brad Marchand tripping Tyler Bertuzzi takes you out of your game, that's another issue.
Listen, they both deserved a call on that because Bertuzzi dove in the air to he actually did a little, and so be it. Good on them. They're both trying to draw. They're both trying to get under each other's skin. But keep in mind, everyone's going to talk about that. They better talk about the wrist shot that Frederick scored on from just inside the blue line on the boards. You can't allow that goal in the playoffs. I'm sorry. So there's goaltending's got to get their act together. A few of them.
Yes. All right, Noodles. We look forward to it. Enjoy your day. Say hi to our good friend Jeff O'Neill, who doesn't like to return my text messages.
I think he got a new phone. He doesn't return my text messages.
Take care, Noodles.
Thanks for having me.